Israel-Hamas live updates, Gaza encircled by IDF, Lebanon airstrike kills 4, Benjamin Netanyahu speaks on ceasefire. We're sorry, this feature is currently unavailable. We're working to restore it. Please try again later. The Sydney Morning Herald. The Sydney Morning Herald. Sections. Network. Advertisement. World. Middle East. Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israel-Hamas conflict as it happened, Gaza City encircled by IDF as more residents flee to Rafah crossing. By Lucy Cormack, Angus Thompson and James Lemon. Save articles for later. Add articles to your saved list and come back to them anytime. Key posts. 8:09 p.m. recapping today's developments. 5:59 p.m. today's headlines so far. 4:49 p.m. Jewish peak body responds to Green's walkout. 4:20 p.m. Be suckered by Hamas ceasefire call, says Morrison in Israel. 3:01 p.m. Green senators stage walkout in support of Palestine. 2:53 p.m. UN agencies issue rare joint statement calling for humanitarian ceasefire. 11:27 am more than 9,700 Palestinians have died. 9:44 am refugee camps bombed, at least 53 killed. Latest posts. Recapping today's developments. That's where we will leave our live coverage for today, day 31 of the Israel-Hamas war. Israel's heavy bombardment of the Gaza Strip continues, while international calls for a humanitarian pause grow louder. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed there will be no ceasefire without the return of the hostages. It is estimated 241 hostages are being held by Hamas in Gaza. Recapping today's top developments. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says more than 9,700 Palestinians have been killed in nearly a month of war in Gaza, of which more than 4,000 are children and minors. The toll is expected to continue rising as Israeli troops advance their ground operations in urban neighborhoods where many civilians remain trapped. Israel's military said it had divided Gaza into two and encircled Gaza City as the coastal strip lost communications for a third time in the fighting so far. It says it has hit 450 targets in 24 hours. Since launching ground operations more than a week ago, the IDF says it has struck more than 2,500 terrorist targets, including terrorist compounds, observation posts, tunnels, weapons depots and senior tactical leadership. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Turkey on the latest leg of his regional tour. He planned to meet his Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan on Monday to discuss the flow of aid to Gaza and efforts to prevent the Israel-Hamas conflict from enveloping the wider region. The U.S. made a rare announcement confirming a nuclear-capable submarine had been positioned in the Middle East, in a move seen as a signal of deterrence to regional adversaries. Former President Barack Obama said, "Nobody's hands are clean," in the conflict and acknowledged that he has questioned whether his administration could have done more to push for a durable peace when he was in power. Obama made the comments in an excerpt of an interview with Pod Save America posted on X. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lucy Cormack. Good night. U.S. nuclear-capable sub arrives in Middle East. In case you missed it, the U.S. military announced that an Ohio-class nuclear-capable submarine was positioned in the Middle East on Sunday. The very rare announcement was posted by the U.S. Central Command on X, formerly Twitter, in a move seen widely as a direct message of deterrence to adversaries in the region. U.S. Central Command is responsible for U.S. forces in the Middle East and Western Central Asia. On November 5, 2023, an Ohio-class submarine arrived in the U.S. Central Command area of responsibility, the announcement read, alongside an image of a submarine which appears to be in Egypt's Suez Canal. Ohio-class submarines are among the largest and most powerful vessels in the U.S. arsenal, as they can be equipped with advanced ballistic or Tomahawk cruise missiles. It is unclear what weapons are on board the vessel deployed on Sunday. With the conflict entering its fifth week, fears are continuing to grow that the fighting could escalate into a wider regional conflict. Jordan's Queen Rania decries avalanche of human suffering. Jordan's Queen Rania al-Abdullah has decried the avalanche of human suffering sweeping the besieged Gaza enclave in a blistering interview condemning Israeli airstrikes. In her second intervention since Hamas' October 7 attack, the Jordanian monarch repeated calls for a ceasefire while insisting that support for Palestinians did not amount to support for Hamas. Let me be very, very clear. Being pro-Palestinian is not being anti-Semitic. Being pro-Palestinian does not mean you're pro-Hamas or pro-terrorism, Rania told CNN. Rania al-Abdullah, Queen of Jordan, credit, Bloomberg. What we've seen in recent years is the charge of anti-Semitism being weaponized in order to silence any criticism of Israel. Accusing Israel of triggering the forced displacement of Gazan civilians, Queen Rania said she did not believe Israel's evacuation orders to civilians, encouraging them to move south, were genuine. Never mind that evacuation orders are sent online or on television knowing that there is no electricity. These evacuation orders I do not believe are for the benefit of the Gaza civilians, she told CNN. They are not the target audience. The rest of the world is. It is Israel's attempt to try to legitimize their actions. It's been unbearable to watch the avalanche of human suffering. Israel has also used paper letter drops to warn civilians to evacuate areas of Gaza since fighting began. Advertisement. IDF troops excavating tunnel shafts near hospitals. By Lucy Cormack. Earlier today the IDF gave an update of its ground operation in Gaza, which was struck by a third communications blackout on Sunday and Monday as fighting continued. IDF spokesman Jonathan Conricus used the update to highlight how troops were targeting Hamas' extensive tunnel network, including those believed to run underneath hospitals. In video and diagrams, which you can watch in the clip below, Conricus described the Qatari-built Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani hospital in Gaza City in Gaza, where Israeli combat engineers and special forces were searching the ground looking for a tunnel shaft, including using a bulldozer to excavate the area. This is the ground of the hospital itself, and there's a combat position, a tunnel, and we know that there is a whole tunnel system underneath that hospital, he said in the update. Hospitals and other humanitarian facilities are supposed to enjoy special protection. But what Hamas is doing is that they're violating that special protection, and they're using it for combat purposes, forcing us to operate there. The IDF has also accused Hamas of locating its main base of operations under Gaza's largest hospital, Shifa Hospital. Since launching their ground operations more than a week ago, the IDF says it has struck more than 2,500 terrorist targets, including terrorist compounds, observation posts, tunnels, weapons depots and senior tactical leadership. Today's headlines so far, by Angus Thompson. With the time now 9 a.m. in Gaza and Tel Aviv, here's where the conflict stands. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has arrived in Turkey on the latest leg of his tour of the Middle East. He is expected to meet his Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan on Monday to discuss the flow of aid to Gaza and efforts to prevent the Israel-Hamas conflict from turning into a wider regional war, according to a Turkish government official. In Canberra, Green senators have walked out of question time after Senator Mehreen Faruqi criticized the government for refusing to call for a ceasefire. Green Senator Janet Rice held up a piece of paper with the Palestinian flag when leaving the chamber with fellow senators. Jordan has delivered aid to a hospital it runs in Gaza City, the country's King Abdullah II said. It is probably the first time aid has been delivered by Jordan, a key U.S. ally that has a peace deal with Israel. The heads of the United Nations' major humanitarian agencies joined with international charities to demand an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, almost a month into the Israel-Hamas conflict, describing the situation in Gaza as horrific and unacceptable. Earlier, Israeli warplanes struck two central Gaza refugee camps, killing at least 53 people and wounding dozens, health officials said. My name is Angus Thompson, thank you for your company this afternoon. I will now hand over to Lucy Cormack, who will take you through the rest of this evening's developments. Opinion: How the world's most traded commodity thrives on fear. By Millie Merwar. When Hamas attacked Israel, and Israel commenced its retaliatory assaults on Gaza, the conflict captured the world's attention for its devastating human costs. But the shock of these events has also had a tangible impact on the price of the world's most traded commodity, oil. Shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine last year, Brent crude oil reached an 8-year high of roughly $140 a barrel, up from about $80 the month before the invasion. While the price eventually came down, settling back at an annual price of about $80 in June this year, it shot above $90 a barrel when Hamas launched its attack on Israel on October 7. As Millie Merwar explains, this spike in oil prices has to do, largely, with people anticipating a drop in oil supply and ramping up their demand in the futures market. The oil market is an especially volatile place, partly because oil is a scarce but essential resource. It's used to propel cars and the machines we rely on to heat homes and produce plastics. For now, there's no easy replacement. In economics speak, this makes oil inelastic. Demand for oil remains relatively unchanged, even when the price fluctuates. Businesses can't immediately pivot to fueling their machines with something else, just because it's become more expensive to buy the black, sludgy stuff we extract from the ground. Read the full piece here. Advertisement. Jewish peak body responds to Green's walkout. By Olivia Ireland. After Green senators staged a walkout calling for a free Palestine, earlier this afternoon, the Executive Council of Australian Jewry co-chief executive Alex Rivchin was quick to condemn the action. The Greens have shown themselves to be the enemies of peace and launderers for anti-Semites at home and murderous thugs abroad, Rivchin said. Their continued patronage of anti-Israel rallies with their genocidal chants and incitement to violence has endangered Australian Jews and our society. Alex Rivchin, Executive Council of Australian Jewry co-chief executive, credit, Nick Moyer. The Greens have repeatedly condemned the October 7 attack by Hamas, as Greens leader Adam Band expressed concern over civilian death in Israel and Palestine. There is no place for anti-Semitism or Islamophobia in the push to end the occupation of Palestine and build a lasting peace, Band said in a statement on October 11. Senator Janet Rice, who walked out of the Senate chamber holding a piece of paper with the Palestinian flag, said the walkout was in response to Labour's failure to call for an immediate ceasefire. The UN have warned the Palestinian people are at grave risk of genocide. This disaster is occurring right before our eyes, and the Labour government is refusing to act, she wrote on X, formerly Twitter. Don't be suckered by Hamas ceasefire call, says Morrison in Israel. By Matthew Knott. Former Prime Minister Scott Morrison has rejected calls for a ceasefire in Gaza while touring one of the places in Israel hit hardest by the October 7 massacre, saying the international community should not be fooled by Hamas' attempt to use a pause in hostilities to prepare for further attacks. As we reported earlier, Morrison and former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson visited the Kfar Aza kibbutz in southern Israel today, where around 57 people were believed to have been killed and 17 taken hostage after Hamas terrorists streamed across the Gaza border. "I don't support a ceasefire," Morrison told Channel 9 while visiting the site, which is less than 3 kilometers from the Gaza border. "A ceasefire would simply advantage Hamas to be able to strengthen their positions and make this war go on for even longer. This is the play from Hamas, and we've got to be careful not to be suckered into it." Read the full story by Foreign Affairs and National Security correspondent Matthew Knott here. Living in Luxury, Hamas Chief Oversees Vast Financial Network. By Jeff Stein. The top Hamas political leader oversees a vast financial network while living hundreds of kilometers from the chaos and violence in Gaza, often traveling freely to represent the terrorist group before world leaders across the region. Already under U.S. economic sanctions since 2018, Ismail Haniyeh, 61, now faces an intensifying economic assault from the West as part of the wider war against Hamas. Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of the Palestinian militant group Hamas, credit Lebanese official government via app. "Haniyeh is really important, he is one of the bin Ladens in this story," said Mark Wallace, chief executive of United Against Nuclear Iran and a former official in the George W. Bush administration. "It's wrong that he's living in Qatar in luxury, seemingly beyond our reach. Qatar must turn him over." The Israeli Foreign Ministry has claimed that Haniyeh's personal fortune is in the billions of dollars, though independent experts say there is no evidence to support the claim. Through its heavy taxation of Palestinians in Gaza, Hamas raises as much as $400 million $614 million a year, according to Matthew Levitt, a former U.S. Treasury Department official. The group, prescribed as a terrorist organization by the Australian government, has an investment portfolio valued between $500 million and $1 billion. It receives as much as $450 million a year in black market smuggling fees, and up to $120 million a year from the Iranian government. Read more about Haniyeh and Hamas finances here. Advertisement. Police, intelligence agencies probe preachers, jihad, comments. Security agencies and police are investigating an Islamic preacher who warned that the Australian government was pushing Muslims into a corner over the conflict in Gaza, adding that jihad was the solution. In a sermon delivered at the Al Medina Dawah Centre in southwest Sydney, the man was filmed calling Prime Minister Anthony Albanese a hypocrite and comparing the Hamas attack on Israel to Indigenous Australians' response to colonisation. By labeling Hamas as terrorists, by saying Israel has the right to defend itself, you are pushing Muslims into a corner, he told the crowd in a clip posted on the Religious Centre's YouTube account on October 28. New South Wales police said they were looking at the video and an investigation was underway. Special Minister of State, Don Farrell, credit, Alex Ellinghausen. Special Minister of State Don Farrell told the Senate today that national security agencies were also investigating following the comments, which he described as corrosive and irresponsible. Asked if the government would move to deport the man, as he had suggested in the recorded speech, Senator Farrell said he would leave it to the relevant authorities to investigate the matter to come forward with some advice. AAP. Most viewed in world. Advertisement. The Sydney Morning Herald. Twitter. Facebook. Instagram. RSS. Copyright 2023.